President Trump hosts the German Chancellor at the White House. The U.S. wipes out Iran's Navy, and a Wyoming Sheriff delivers a message to illegal semi-drivers. Truck around and find out. I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Tuesday, March 3rd, and this is Evening Wire.
President Trump hosted the German Chancellor in the Oval Office today and addressed reporters' questions. Daily Wire reporter Lyndon Blake reports.
Reporters peppered the president with questions focused almost entirely on the military action in Iran. Asked whether Israel pushed the U.S. into the strikes, Trump said the opposite may be true.
I might have forced their hand. We were having negotiations with these lunatics. Based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now.
When asked about who might take the reins after the death of the Ayatollah, President Trump had this to say.
Most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming.
Iran's Assembly of Experts reportedly elected Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of Ali Khamenei, to be the next supreme leader of Iran.
Israel launched strikes on an area where what's left of Iran's top brass was meeting to discuss who will succeed the regime's fallen supreme leader. Footage circulating on local outlets appears to show massive damage to the building where the meeting was being held. It's not yet confirmed who was inside at the time of the strike, but a senior Israeli official told Fox that the meeting involved various members of Iran's Supreme Council.
The U.S. has temporarily closed its embassies in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Beirut after Iran appeared to target the U.S. embassy in Riyadh. The Saudi Ministry of Defense said 2 drones hit the American embassy on Tuesday morning, causing minor damage to the building. After the attack, the U.S. State Department issued mandatory evacuation orders to non-essential personnel across half a dozen Middle Eastern countries. Iran has launched hundreds of missiles and drones at Arab states that harbor U.S. bases and embassies, but so far, limited casualties from the attacks have been reported.
President Trump says that U.S. weapons stockpiles are strong, but not where he ultimately wants them to be. Daily Wire contributor Tim Pierce has the latest.
In a series of posts, Trump said America has a virtually unlimited supply of key munitions and remains prepared for an extended conflict if necessary. However, he acknowledged that while supplies are solid at the highest levels, additional high-grade weaponry is stored overseas. His comments follow reports that some Pentagon officials have raised concerns about interceptor inventories if hostilities drag on. Morning Wire spoke to retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, who spoke cautiously about drawing from our overseas stockpiles.
Central Command might have to draw from those stockpiles, which make those commanders a bit nervous because their warfighting plans are predicated on having a certain amount of ammunition available should something kick off. For example, the PACOM commander and his constant worries about Taiwan and China.
Trump has largely dismissed those worries, arguing the U.S. military is well positioned and ahead of schedule in its current objectives. The White House continues to say the timeline for operations will ultimately depend on the president's judgment as the situation evolves.
The president is also seeking to ease any public panic over potential Iran-linked terror threats following this week's deadly shooting in Austin, Texas. Daily Wire White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olahan has the exclusive.
I spoke to President Trump in a phone call last night in which he encouraged Americans not to worry about any domestic terrorism threats. And he described the alleged shooter, who was wearing clothing referencing Iran, as, quote, just a whack job. The FBI is investigating whether that shooting was ideologically motivated, and authorities say that while items referencing Iran were found in the suspect's home and vehicle, a motive has not been confirmed. Texas Senator Ted Cruz discussed the investigation on the Ben Shapiro show yesterday.
I spoke to Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, and they're going through all of the communications, all of the social media. They're searching his residence, and they are on guard for more terrorism. I assume we're going to vote again this week on funding the Department of Homeland Security. And my prediction is the Democrats' party line will say, no, we are not going to pay the salaries of the agents and officers charged with stopping terror attacks.
U.S. Central Command posted video footage on Monday of missile strikes taking out Iranian naval vessels in the Gulf of Oman. Daily Wire reporter Zach Jewell has the details.
The CENTCOM Post stated that, quote, 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. The Post also heralded a return of, quote, the freedom of maritime navigation that has historically led to America's global economic success. On the naval attacks, President Trump posted that the Iranian Navy has nearly been defeated and that the U.S. had largely destroyed the Iranian naval headquarters. This marks one of the most severe single-day blows ever dealt to Iran's Navy. The damage will severely limit Iran's ability to exert force on the surrounding waters, even for defensive purposes.
Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers. Think of it as your local nursery, available anywhere, with a bigger selection than you'll find anywhere else. From fruit and privacy trees to flowering varieties, shrubs, and houseplants, every plant is grown with care and guaranteed to arrive healthy. Simply click, order, and grow to create your dream yard with options that fit your climate, space, and lifestyle. I'm so excited to receive my fiddle-leaf fig from Fast Growing Trees. Having real plants in a space just breathes life into the room, and I can hardly wait to add mine. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy, backed by ongoing support from trained plant experts to help you plan, choose, and care for your new greenery. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WIRE at checkout. That's an additional 20% off better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WIRE at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WIRE. Now is the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WIRE to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply.
Truck around and find out. That's the blunt message a Wyoming sheriff is giving to illegal immigrant truck drivers. Here with more is Daily Wire assistant editor Nathan Gay.
Laramie County Sheriff Brian Kozak says a recent 3-day enforcement effort along major interstates has led to 177 traffic stops and the arrest of 32 illegal immigrants who were turned over to ICE. The operation targeted commercial vehicles and unsafe driving near large trucks, resulting in dozens of citations. Kozak says similar crackdowns are happening in other states amid growing concerns about highway safety. The issue gained national attention after a deadly crash in Florida involving an undocumented truck driver. A House Homeland Security subcommittee is set to examine the issue this week as lawmakers weigh potential reforms.
The father of a teen accused of killing 4 people at a Georgia high school has been found guilty on dozens of counts related to the mass shooting, including second-degree murder. The Barrow County jury delivered the verdict today. 55-year-old Colin Gray now faces a maximum penalty of 180 years in prison. The decision is a result of a landmark case in which prosecutors sought to attach murder charges to a mass shooter's parents for the first time. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Gray shared blame in the tragedy that struck Winder, Georgia. They said Gray should have better secured his son's rifle, which was a gift from him. Prosecutors also said the father chose to ignore signs of his son's spiraling mental health.
In a 6-3 vote on Monday, the Supreme Court struck down a New York court's order to redraw a GOP district for supposed, quote, racial fairness. Daily Wire senior editor Joel Needler has the story.
The case centers on New York's 11th congressional district encompassing Staten Island and southern Brooklyn. Activists attempted to force a creation of a, quote, crossover district specifically designed to ensure that minority voters, who comprise about 30% of Staten Island's population, could elect their preferred candidates. In January, Justice Jeffrey Pearlman of the New York Supreme Court, a trial-level court, prohibited the use of the existing congressional map and ordered the Independent Redistricting Commission to redraw the lines based on explicit racial targets. But Justice Samuel Alito cut through the legal jargon to identify the trial court's order for what it was, a violation of the 14th Amendment. Alito made it clear that a state court cannot authorize redistricting for the, quote, express purpose of producing race-based outcomes.
The High Court also ruled against a California policy on gender-confused children, siding with parents in what's being called a watershed moment. Daily Wire investigative reporter Meg Brock has the story.
In a 6-3 decision on Monday, the Supreme Court ruled that California policies that block schools from notifying parents about their child's desire to change their sex and be referred to by incorrect pronouns likely violates religious liberty. The majority also wrote that parents seeking religious exemptions were, quote, likely to succeed on the merits of their sincere religious beliefs and their right to raise their children under them, and that, quote, California's policies violate those beliefs. Many of these policies, specifically those that stopped local school districts from passing measures that required teachers to inform parents about a student's identity, were signed by Governor Gavin Newsom. A spokesperson for his office criticized the ruling and said that teachers should be focused on teaching, not, quote, being gender cops.
And midterms officially kicked off today as voters cast ballots in primaries across Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas. Daily Wire political reporter Cameron Arcand has more.
This year's elections will be a test of political strategy after Texas and a handful of other states approved mid-decade redistricting. The Lone Star State redrew borders to create 5 more Republican-leaning districts. Texas Senator John Cornyn is facing a bruising primary fight with Attorney General Ken Paxton. In North Carolina, GOP Senator Tom Tillis is retiring and leaving his seat open. It is expected to be filled by either Democrat former Governor Roy Cooper or Trump-backed Michael Whatley, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee. Polls will be closing in these states throughout the evening.
All right, those are your drive home updates. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it earlier today, we covered some major stories, including more U.S. forces heading to the Middle East, Iran losing international support, and Texas reeling from a mass shooting while primary elections get underway. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another full edition of Morning Wire.